My wife's funeral was quiet, almost too quiet. The sky was gray, the air felt heavy, and everyone spoke in small, soft voices as if the world might break if they talked normally. I stood beside the coffin, trying to breathe without shaking. Clara had been my wife for more than 30 years. I never imagined I would say goodbye like this. Family friends came to shake my hand, whispering, "Sorry for your loss." I nodded, but their words felt far away. My daughter Nina stood on my left, wiping her face with a tissue. My son Oliver stood on my right, staring at the coffin with no emotion at all. I thought maybe he was trying to stay strong, but something about his face seemed too cold for a day like this. The priest finished the final prayer and slowly stepped back. Two men took hold of the ropes and began lowering the coffin into the ground. I felt my chest tighten as I watched it go down. It felt wrong. It felt too fast. But I told myself this was life now. I had to accept it. Then my phone vibrated in my pocket. I almost ignored it. Who would text me at my wife's funeral? Maybe it was a relative who couldn't attend. Maybe someone was sending their condolences. I tried to focus on the coffin, but the phone buzzed again, louder this time, demanding attention. I pulled it out quietly and lowered my head to hide the screen. A message blinked at me. "I'm not in the coffin." My fingers went numb. My heart stopped for a second. I stared at the words, unable to breathe. For a moment I thought I was seeing things, that grief was playing tricks on my mind. But the message was clear, simple, direct. Impossible. I looked up quickly. Nina was staring at the ground, her eyes red. Oliver stood stiffly beside her, his jaw tight. Neither of them looked at me. Nobody around me looked suspicious. Everyone was focused on the burial. Another message appeared. "Don't ask anyone here. They are watching." My mouth felt dry. I looked around again, this time slower. The priest was folding his book. A few relatives were holding hands, wiping tears. Nothing seemed strange. Yet the message made everything feel dangerous. Then a third message came. "Don't trust the children." A sharp chill ran down my back. My hands trembled. I quickly locked my phone and slipped it into my pocket before anyone noticed the change in my face. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know whether to be afraid, confused, or angry. I just felt lost. The coffin settled into the ground. People tossed flowers onto it. Nina leaned closer to me and whispered, "Dad, are you okay?" I nodded, even though I wasn't. Inside, my mind was racing. My heart was beating fast. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. And for the first time that day, I felt more frightened than sad. Felt empty without Clara's voice. But my mind was too unsettled to rest. The message I received kept returning, like a heavy shadow in my thoughts. To understand anything, I had to go back and remember the days before Clara died. Only then did I start seeing the things I missed. Clara had not been herself during her last week. She moved around the house quietly, almost like someone trying not to be noticed. She jumped at small sounds and locked the doors even during the day. When I asked her what was wrong, she forced a smile and said she was just tired, but her eyes looked worried. I remembered a night when she stood by the window, staring outside as if someone might be there. I walked over and touched her arm gently. "Are you feeling all right?" I asked. She took a long breath before answering. "If something happens to me, don't believe everything you see." I thought she meant aging or stress from work. I hugged her and told her everything would be fine. Now those words felt like a warning I failed to understand. Our daughter Nina also acted differently during that period. She visited more often than usual, but she never stayed long. She whispered to Clara in the kitchen, their voices too low for me to hear clearly. When I walked in, they would stop talking quickly, giving me forced smiles. Oliver was no better. He checked the mail before anyone else. He took long phone calls outside the house, always walking far enough so I couldn't hear. When I asked who he was talking to, he simply said it was work. His answers were short, almost sharp. One evening I found Clara sitting at the dining table with several documents spread out. The papers looked serious: medical forms, financial statements, and something like a consent form. She covered them as soon as I entered. "It's nothing important," she said too quickly. Later that night, I saw Nina and Oliver in the living room talking in low voices again. I heard only one line clearly from Nina. "She has to sign them. We don't have time." Oliver nodded without noticing I was nearby. They stopped when they saw me and changed the topic immediately. I didn't push them. They were adults. I trusted them. Now that trust felt heavy. The night Clara collapsed was still clear in my mind. She had been cooking dinner when she suddenly held her stomach and staggered. She fell before I could reach her. I panicked and tried to call an ambulance, but Nina and Oliver appeared so fast it felt like they had been waiting. "Let us handle it," Oliver said firmly, taking the phone from my hand. Nina kneeled beside Clara, checking her pulse with strange calmness. Everything happened too quickly, too smoothly, and before I could understand anything, they told me she didn't make it. The next morning they arranged the funeral. They chose a closed coffin. They said it was best. At the time, grief blinded me. Looking back now, nothing about that week felt normal. After remembering everything from the week before Clara died, I felt a quiet fire growing inside me. I knew I could not rely on anyone else. If I wanted the truth, I had to find it myself. So I began searching in small, careful steps, making sure Nina and Oliver never suspected anything. The first thing I checked was Clara's phone. It had been kept in a drawer since the funeral. When I turned it on, I expected to see the usual things: messages from friends, school notices, maybe old pictures. But instead, I found long gaps in her call history. Entire days were missing, as if someone had deleted parts of her life. The last saved call was from an unknown number. It lasted only 20 seconds. I tried calling it back, but it didn't ring. It didn't even connect. I stared at the screen, wondering why Clara would hide calls, or why someone would hide them for her. Next, I opened the folder where we kept our important documents. Clara's hospital papers were supposed to be inside. I remembered Oliver saying everything had already been prepared. But when I looked at them closely, something felt strange. The doctor's handwriting looked rushed and uneven, like someone writing under pressure. Even Clara's signature on one form seemed slightly different, almost shaky. I held the paper to the light and noticed the ink strokes were uneven. It didn't look like her usual calm, neat writing. I needed answers, so I visited the small clinic where Clara had been declared dead. I walked in pretending to be a grieving husband who needed comfort, not a man looking for secrets. The receptionist recognized me and quickly called the doctor. He came out with a tense smile, his hands twisting together. "I'm so sorry for what happened," he said softly. I nodded. "I just need to understand a few things. My wife was fine the day before. What exactly happened to her?" His eyes shifted to the floor. "Your children explained everything. They told me she had a history. They asked for privacy." "History of what?" I asked. He hesitated, swallowed, and said, "I don't want trouble. Please ask your family." That answer sat badly in my chest. I thanked him and left, but I knew he was hiding something. His voice shook every time he said, "your children." Back at home, I started watching Nina and Oliver more closely. Late one night, I heard faint sounds in the study. When I walked quietly to the door, I saw Oliver going through Clara's old files. He looked nervous, flipping quickly through papers, then stuffing them into his jacket pocket. He didn't notice me standing in the hallway. Another day, I found Nina in the backyard burning some of Clara's notebooks. The fire crackled as pages turned to ash. "They're too painful to keep," she said without looking at me. But the notebooks were Clara's lesson plans. Nothing painful was inside them. It didn't make sense. Later that evening, I discovered a small folded note inside one of Clara's coats. The handwriting was hers. It read, "If you find this, it means they move faster than I expected. The room felt colder as I held the note. I didn't fully understand what Clara feared, but her words told me one thing. I needed to keep searching, and I needed to be careful. The more I learned, the heavier my chest felt. Clara's note, the strange behavior of our children, the nervous doctor, everything pointed in one direction. Something around her death was not natural. I needed more than papers and memories. I needed someone who had seen something with their own eyes. So I walked around the neighborhood, asking gentle questions. Most people only offered soft condolences, but our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Harrow, stopped me as I passed her gate. She wore her usual long scarf and held a small basket of herbs. "You look troubled, Harold," she said kindly. "I'm just trying to understand some things," I replied. She gave me a long, careful look. Then she lowered her voice. "You know, I saw Clara 2 days after they said she passed." My breath caught. "You saw her? Are you sure?" "Of course I'm sure," she said, touching her chest. "She walked past here early in the morning with a small black suitcase. She looked pale and tired. When I called her name, she didn't answer. She just kept going." The world around me felt like it tilted a little. A suitcase. 2 days after her death. Running. I didn't know what to say. I thanked her and walked home with slow, heavy steps. Every memory of the funeral felt different now. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed again. I expected another condolence message. Instead, it was from the same unknown number, the one that reached me at the funeral. "You're getting close." For a moment, I stared at the screen, not moving. Another message followed. "Look where she hid. I sent you the place." A small map appeared, showing an old storage building near the edge of town. I recognized the area. It used to be a repair shop years ago. Almost nobody went there anymore. I waited until evening before driving there. The building looked forgotten, with rust on the doors and long grass around the walls. When I stepped inside, the air smelled of dust and old wood. Light came through the broken windows, falling on scattered items on the floor. Then I saw it. Clara's handbag, the one she carried everywhere. The fabric was slightly torn, as if someone had dragged it. Beside it lay her favorite blue scarf. I picked it up and held it for a long moment, breathing slowly. It still smelled faintly like her perfume. On a small shelf, I found a water bottle half full, a thin blanket, and a few pieces of paper. One was a medicine bottle with the label scratched off. Another was a letter in Clara's handwriting. The letter was unfinished. The ink stopped halfway through a sentence. "I don't know how long I can hide. They are getting closer." I stood in that quiet room, holding her words in my hands. She had been alive after they said she died. She had been scared. She had been running. And someone else knew all of it. I put everything back exactly where I found it. I didn't want to alert anyone. On the drive home, the sky was dark, but my thoughts were darker. Every detail pointed to a truth I still didn't fully understand. What mattered now was that Clara had needed help, and I had missed the signs. If she was alive somewhere, I had to find her. And if someone had forced her to run, I needed to know why. When I woke up the next morning, I felt different. I had spent the whole night thinking about the storage building, the neighbor's words, the missing papers, and Clara's unfinished note. My fear had turned into determination. I needed answers, and the only people who could give them were the ones living under my roof, my children. I walked into the living room where Nina and Oliver were quietly drinking tea. They looked up at me, their faces calm, almost too calm. For the first time in my life, I looked at them not as my children, but as adults who might be hiding something from me. "We need to talk," I said, sitting down. Nina frowned. "About what?" "About your mother," I answered. Her eyes flickered, just for a second. Oliver set down his cup. "Dad, we've already talked about everything. She was sick. You know that. I kept my voice steady. No, I don't know that. I only know what you both told me. They exchanged a quick look. The kind of look people share when they're preparing a story. I watched every movement, every breath. I visited the clinic, I continued. The doctor seemed afraid to talk. He said you two handled everything. Nina's fingers tightened around her cup. We were trying to help you. I shook my head. You burned her notebooks. You searched her files at night. You rushed the funeral. You never explained anything. Oliver exhaled sharply. Dad, you're grieving. You're confused. No, I said quietly. I'm paying attention. Silence filled the room. Then I placed Clara's note on the table. The small folded paper sat between us like a living thing. Nina's face went pale. Oliver's jaw locked. Where did you get that? He asked. She left it in her coat, I replied. She wrote that someone was moving faster than she expected. Nina looked down. Her hands trembled. Dad, you don't understand. Then help me understand, I said. Oliver leaned back and rubbed his forehead. Mom got involved in something at Nina's workplace, something she shouldn't have seen. Nina nodded slowly. She came to my lab. She saw things we were working on, things that weren't supposed to be shared. She panicked. She said people were following her. How dangerous? I asked. Dangerous enough, Nina whispered. I felt my stomach tighten. And instead of helping her, you made me believe she died? We were trying to protect her, Nina cried suddenly. She didn't trust anyone. She said she had to disappear. She begged us not to tell you because it would put you in danger too. Oliver added, we staged everything. The clinic helped. She left on her own. We didn't know where she went after the storage place. She refused to tell us. I sat back, breathing deeply. Every answer pulled my heart in a new direction. Hurt, relief, anger, confusion, all at once. So she's alive, I asked. Nina wiped her eyes. Yes, somewhere. She promised to contact us when it's safe. I closed my eyes for a moment. A weight lifted, another weight settled. My wife wasn't dead. She was hiding, running, trying to protect the family. When I opened my eyes again, I felt calmer. Then when she reaches out, I said softly, I want to hear from her first. Nina nodded. Oliver nodded too. For the first time since the funeral, I felt steady again. Lost, yes, but steady. Clara wasn't in the coffin. Now I understood why. Now I knew what I had to wait for. In the quiet days that followed, I learned to breathe again. The fear, the confusion, the anger. Slowly they settled into something softer. Clara was alive, hidden, but alive. And even though I didn't know where she was, I held on to one truth. She was fighting to come back to us. I kept her note close, reading it every night, letting her words guide me. I stopped seeing the coffin in my mind and started seeing her walking toward me someday. Until then, I waited with patience, not fear. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.